Namaste. Aryabhat was the author of the Aryabhatiya and the Aryabhat Siddhanta. Aryabhat explicitly mentioned that the earth rotates about its axis, thereby causing what appears to be an apparent westward motion of the stars. Aryabhat also mentioned that reflected sunlight is the cause behind the shining of the moon. There are 121 shlokas in Aryabhatiya. Starting with the introduction, the work is fragmented into various sections. Gitikapad, Ganit, that is mathematics, Kalakriya, that is time measurement, and Gola, that is sphere or cosmic sphere. Aryabhatiya's writing style is very compact. The shloka in which he cites his birth simply states that he was 23 years aged in the 3600th year of Kali Yuga, and we know that Aryabhat was born in 476 AD and died in 550 AD. This shloka also suggests that Aryabhat might have been just 23 or 24 years when he composed the most distinguished work, Aryabhatiya. In his works, Aryabhat has mentioned himself as Kulup, which indicates that he might have been the Kulpati, meaning Vice Chancellor of the Nalanda University, where he is also known to be heading the astronomical observatory. Aryabhat mentions that he was born in Kusumpur, which means city of flowers, which his commentator Bhaskar I identifies with Patliputra in Bihar or modern Patna in Bihar. Al-Biruni in his travelogues mentions Aryabhat of Kusumpur many times. In those days, it was a common belief that the earth was the center of universe. This concept is known as geocentrism. Aryabhat introduced the concept of heliocentrism, where sun is the center of universe. The number of rotations of the earth as well as the number of planetary movements of Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus and Mercury in the Mahayuga is stated in one shloka. It may be interesting to mention that in this shloka, Aryabhat states the number of rotations of the earth around its axis in the Mahayuga, which indicates that he was informed of the reality that the earth was rotating around its axis. He also stated that the moon and planets shine by reflected sunlight. He was the first person to say that the earth is spherical and it revolves around the sun, and that's how what Copernicus told in 15th century, Aryabhat already knew 1000 years before him. Instead of the prevailing cosmology, where eclipses were believed to be caused by pseudoplanetary node Rahu and Ketu, he explained eclipses in terms of shadows cast by Earth. It is incredible how Aryabhat could explain both lunar and solar eclipses. He gave the formula to calculate when the eclipses will happen and how long they are going to stay. There is another attraction in this shloka, whereas so far the custom has been to imagine varying lengths of Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga in Mahayuga. Aryabhat suggests that these lengths are the same and that in the current Mahayuga, three Yugpads, Satyug, Treta Yuga and Dwapar Yuga have come and gone, and the fourth Yugpad, namely Kali Yuga, has already started. It is also indicated that the Mahayuga year, month and days in a month begins with Shukla Paksh of the Chaitra Mas, which is now celebrated as Hindu New Year. Aryabhatiya gives details about the relationship between Rashi, Ansh, Kal, the vastness and size of sky, the rotational velocity of the sun, moon and earth, the connection between Angul, that is finger, Hath, that is hand, and Purush, that is person, the diameters of the earth, sun, moon and planets, the retrograde and forward motion of the celestial bodies and their extreme locations in the sky. He also calculated the circumference of the earth. According to him, the circumference of the earth is 39,968.05 kilometers, which is just 0.2 less than today's calculation of 40,075.01 kilometers. Aryabhat gave the height of atmosphere up to 80 kilometers. Actually, the height of atmosphere is more than 1600 kilometers, but 99% of it lies up to 80 kilometers only. Aryabhat gave the information on distance between Sun and other planets, and astonishingly, it is almost same as today's calculation. The distance between Sun and Earth is approximately 15 crore kilometers, which is known as 1 astronomical unit. Let's see how accurately Aryabhat calculated. Mercury. Aryabhat's calculation was 0.375 astronomical unit, and today's calculation is 0.387 astronomical unit. Venus. Aryabhat's calculation was 0.725 astronomical units, and today's calculation is 0.723 astronomical unit. Mars. Aryabhat's calculation was 1.538 astronomical units, and today's calculation is 1.523 astronomical units. Jupiter. Aryabhat's calculation was 4.16 astronomical units, and today's calculation is 4.20 astronomical units. Saturn. Aryabhat's calculation was 9.41 astronomical units, whereas today's calculation is 9.54 astronomical units. Aryabhat told that the length of a day is 23 hours, 56 minutes and 0.041 seconds, which is just 0.86 seconds different from today's calculations. Before him, many Greek and Indian historians gave the length of a day, but it was not as accurate as of Aryabhat. In Aryabhatiya, the day was reckoned from one sunrise to the next, whereas in Aryabhat's Siddhant, he took the day from one midnight to another. According to Aryabhat, the length of a year is 365.25868 days, which is almost equal to present calculation of 365.25636 days. Aryabhat calculated that moon takes 27.32167 days to go around the earth, which is almost equal to the present calculation of 27.32166 days. Do you think we are talking about an astronomer or a mathematician? Without an unmatched knowledge of mathematics, such astronomical calculations were impossible. In reality, he was the first scholar to include mathematics in a book on astronomy. Aryabhat offers a huge amount of information on algebra, arithmetic, quadratic equations, and trigonometry. He was essentially responsible for the birth of trigonometry, which the whole world is studying today. In fact, sine, cosine are transcriptions introduced by Aryabhat. Aryabhat called them Ja and Hosea. Aryabhat had devised an inventive way of writing numbers as symbols so that they could be integrated into the form of the verse. Many times you might have heard that Aryabhat invented zero, but actually he started using zero as a symbol. The great Indian mathematician calculated the value of pi at 3.1416. It is certainly astonishing to think that one man was responsible for so many mathematical wonders and geographical facts which are a common piece of knowledge today. India's first satellite, launched on April 19, 1975, was named Aryabhat as a tribute to the man whose knowledge knew no bounds, just like the limitless space. In 1976, UNESCO celebrated 1500th anniversary of Aryabhat. An observatory has also been given the name Aryabhat as a tribute to this genius. Aryabhat, a man beyond his times, is certainly an Indian we always will be proud of.
Nagarjuna is a name synonymous to alchemy, chemistry, and metallurgy. He is also a well known name in Ayurveda. He conducted a number of alchemic and metallurgical experiments directed towards transforming base elements into gold. His book Ras Ratnakar is one of the earliest documented texts in Sanskrit on alchemy and related subjects. Nagarjuna, through his experiments, discovered in his laboratory the alchemy of transmuting base metals into gold. It was not the actual gold, but a gold-like substance or element that looked like gold and shone like gold. This gold shine mechanism technology is used by today's jewelry industry for making imitation jewelry. The gold shine in imitation jewelry we wear today is a gift by Nagarjuna. Iranian historian Al-Biruni describes in his book on India about this art of alchemy and cites Nagarjuna as a famous representative of this art. Nagarjuna's treatise Ras Ratnakar describes methods for the extraction of metals like gold, silver, tin and copper. He described preparation of medicinal drugs, preparation of elixir of life, of creating medicines for increasing lifespan. He contributed a lot towards developing curative medicines for various ailments. He described design of chemical lab, including instruments to be used in the lab, shape and size of instruments and their uses. Nagarjuna had a standard laboratory of his own where he conducted experiments. There are evidences of his experimental laboratory in Nagalwadi village of Maharashtra. Probably, Nagarjuna migrated from Gujarat to Maharashtra and settled here. Being the most prominent scholar in Indian alchemy, Nagarjuna is featured in the National Science Centre in Delhi in the Art, Science and Technological Heritage of India Gallery. His chemical laboratory, called the Rasashala, is recreated in this gallery. He has also written Jeev Sutra, Ras Vaisheshik Sutra, Yog Shatak, Kakswut and Yog Ratnmala. The founder of the Madhyamik school of Mahayana sect of Buddhism was also Nagarjuna, hence confusion often prevails when identifying the two great personalities of India. According to Al-Biruni, Indian metallurgist Nagarjuna was born around 100 years before him. Al-Biruni was born in 973's contemporary era and lived up to the mid-11th century. Going by his record, Nagarjuna was born in the 9th century AD. When the entire people credit the Western world for modern physics and its development, it is India's own scientist, says Kanad, also known as Acharya Kanad, who should be highly revered and credited. He discovered the atomic structure, atomic theory and even subatomic particles some 2600 years ago. Kan in Sanskrit denotes the smallest particle. He is revered as the father of atomic theory. It was Kanad who originated the idea that Anu, that is atom, was an indestructible particle of matter. An interesting story states that this theory occurred to him while he was walking with food in his hand. As he nibbled at the food in his hand, throwing away the small particles, it occurred to him that he could not divide the food into further parts, and thus the idea of a matter which cannot be divided further came into existence. He called the indivisible matter Anu, that is atom. He also stated that Anu can have two states, absolute rest and a state of motion. Maharishi Kanad founded the philosophical school of Vaisheshik that also represents the earliest physics and authored the text Vaisheshik Sutras or aphorisms. He pioneered atomic theory, described dimension, motion, chemical reactions of atoms. Vaisheshik Sutras are a blend of science, philosophy and religion. The essence of these sutras is the atomic theory of matter. He is said to have believed that all living beings are composed of 5 elements: water, fire, earth, air and ether. Heat is the root cause for a change. When you heat a substance, there will be a change. Due to heat, mango ripens. Due to heat, the earthen pot blackens. Due to heat, water boils. So, Kanad claims that heat was responsible for any change. It is said that if Kanad Sutras are analyzed, one would find that his atomic theory was far more advanced than those forwarded by the Greek philosophers Eusebius and Democritus. Kanad's system speaks of 6 properties, that is Padarthas. These 6 categories are Dravya, that is substance, Gun, that is quality, Karman, that is motion, Samay, that is time, Vishesh, that is particular, and Samanvay, that is inherence. There are 9 classes of substances, that is Dravya, some of which are atomic, some non-atomic, and others that are all pervasive. Multiple Hindu texts dated to the 1st and 2nd century, such as Mahavibhasha and Gyan Prasthan from Kushan Empire, quote and comment on Kanad's doctrines. His ideas are also mentioned in Buddhist texts attributed to Ashwaghosh of the same period. In Jainism literature, he is revered as the Shad Uluk, which means the Uluk who propounded the doctrine of 6 categories. Kanad was influential in Indian philosophies and he appears in various texts by alternate names such as Kashyap, Uluk, Kanad and Kanubhok. Physics is the central to Kanad's assertion that all that is knowable is based on motion. Kanad makes empirical observations such as the rising upwards of fire, magnetic movement, rain and thunder, and growth of grass, and offers naturalistic explanations to them in his text Vaisheshik Sutra. Kanad was among the sages of India who believed in man's potential to understand existence and reach moksha on his own without God. The text states, every object of creation is made of atoms, that is Parmanu, which in turn connect with each other to form molecules, that is Anu. Atoms are eternal and their combinations constitute the empirical material world. Adherents of the school of philosophy founded by Kanad considered the atom to be indestructible and hence eternal. They believed atoms to be minute objects invisible to the naked eye which come into being and vanish in an instant. Kanad postulated 4 different kinds of atoms, 2 with mass and 2 without. Each substance is supposed to consist of all 4 kinds of atoms. National Aeronautical Laboratory in Bangalore runs a science magazine in Kanad's name. This magazine is known as Kanad.
During the 6th century BCE, Maharishi Sushrut, a legendary scholar of the Indian medical science and founding father of surgery, wrote one of the world's earliest works on medicine and surgery. Sushrut lived in the ancient city of Kashi, now known as Varanasi. 2600 years ago, Maharishi Sushrut, together with his colleagues, had conducted the variety of complex surgeries such as caesareans, artificial limbs, cataract, urinary stones, fractures, and most especially the plastic surgery. In a famous book, Shalyatantra, Sushrut described about all the surgical procedures. Shalyatantra was later named as the Shusurata Samhita. In Shusurata Samhita, written in Sanskrit language, Sushrut has described all the amazing surgical procedures with the accuracy and curative efficacy. It forms the foundations of the ancient Hindu form of medicine known as Ayurveda. Shusurata Samhita is the key reference book for all the Ayurvedic surgeons. Shusurata Samhita in its extant form is divided into 186 chapters and contains descriptions of 1120 illnesses, 700 medicinal plants, 64 preparations from mineral sources and 57 preparations based on animal sources. Sushrut Samhita has 2 parts. First one is known as the Purva Tantra and the second one is known as the Uttar Tantra. These 2 parts together cover all other specialties such as medicine, geriatrics, pediatrics, ear diseases, diseases of the nose, throat, eye, toxicology and psychiatry. The 5 books of the Purva Tantra having 120 chapters are Sutrasthan, Sharirasthan, Nidanasthan, Chikitsasthan and Kalpasthan.
He had classified the surgical operations and explained the plastic surgery as well as its tools. He had described around 8 special operations for surgery, such as the cutting, piercing, opening, scratching, inserting, and stitching. Maharishi Sushrut had worked as both the practitioner and the teacher of surgery. Maharishi Sushrut has described in his writings that the hemorrhage can be easily arrested and has given the procedure to arrest. According to Sushrut, the wound is an ultimate abrasion of the underlying pathological structure which starts with the inflammation. He was the pioneer of anesthesia and has prompted the proper use of wine with incense of cannabis for the anesthesia purpose. He had also classified the bones along with their reaction to injuries. He had described 6 types of dislocation of joints and 12 varieties of fractures of the shaft together with the principles of fracture treatment such as traction, manipulation, appositions, and stabilization. Shusurata was well known about the urinary stones, variety of stones, signs, symptoms, method of removal, operational complications, as well as the anatomy of urinary bladder. Apart from all above, he had described the surgery of intestinal obstruction, perforated intestines, abdomen accidental injuries, which involves the prostruction of omentum. His main contribution was towards the field of plastic and cataract surgery. He had described all the basic principles of plastic surgery by offering a suitable physiotherapy before operations. The technique of the release of skin in order to cover all the small defects, rotation of the flaps to heal the partial loss of the pedicle flaps to cover the entire loss of skin from an area are well described by him. He has given various other methods together with the rotation graft, sliding graft, pedicle graft, rhinoplasty, and labioplasty. Skin grafts entail transplanting pieces of skin from one part of the body to another. Today, surgeons use skin grafts to restore areas that have lost protective layers of tissue due to trauma, infection, burns, as well as to restore areas where surgical intervention has created a loss of skin, as can happen with melanoma removal. Rhinoplasty, colloquially known as the nose job, is a surgery performed to achieve 2 results: to improve the breathing function of the nose, to improve the cosmetic look of the nose. Shusurata's treatise provides the first written record of a forehead flap rhinoplasty, a technique still used today to reconstruct a nose. He used a flap of skin from the forehead called a pedicle to form a new nose. The nose in Indian society has remained a symbol of dignity and respect throughout antiquity. In ancient times, amputation of the nose was frequently done as a punishment for criminals, war prisoners, or people indulged in adultery. The practice of rhinoplasty slowly started as a result of the need to reconstruct the external nose and later developed to a full-fledged science. He explored surgeons to achieve perfect healing, which is characterized by the absence of any elevation, enduration, swelling mass, and the return of normal coloring. A number of Shusurata's contributions have been discussed in modern literature. Some of these include Hrithshul, which is heart pain, circulation of vital body fluids such as blood, which is known as Rakta Dhatu, and lymph, that is Ras Dhatu, Madhumehi, obesity, and hypertension. The first mention of leprosy is described in Sushrut Samhita. The Sushrut Samhita is best known for its approach and discussions of surgery. It was one of the first in human history to suggest a student should practice, states the text, on objects resembling the deceased or body part. It has been stated that the Sushrut Samhita is likely a work that includes several historical layers, whose composition may have begun in the last centuries BCE. It has been stated that the Sushrut Samhita is likely a work that includes several historical layers whose composition may have begun in the last centuries BCE and was completed in its presently surviving form by another author who redacted its first 5 sections and added the long final section, the Uttar Tantra. It is likely that Sushrut Samhita was known to the scholar Dridbal somewhere between 300 to 500 contemporary era, which gives the latest date of the version of the work that has survived into the modern era. Shushruth is named in the text as the author who presented the teachings of his guru Devadas. He is said in ancient texts such as the Buddhist Jataks to have been a physician who taught in the school of Kashi, that is Varanasi, in parallel to another medical school in Takshila, sometime between 1200 BCE to 600 BCE. One of the oldest palm leaf manuscripts of Sushruth Samhita has been discovered in Nepal. It is preserved in the Kaisar Library, Nepal, as manuscript KL699, with its digital copy archived by Nepal German Manuscript Preservation Project. The partially damaged manuscript consists of 152 folios written on both sides with 6 to 8 lines in transitional Gupta script. The manuscript has been verifiably dated to have been completed by the scribe on Sunday, April 13, 878 contemporary era. Sushruth Samhita remained preserved for many centuries exclusively in Sanskrit language. In the 8th century AD, Sushruth Samhita was translated into Arabic as Kitab Shah Shun al-Hindi and Kitab-e-Sushruth. The first European translation of Sushruth Samhita was published by Hessler in Latin and in German by Müller in the early 19th century. The complete English literature was done by Kaviraj Kunjlal Bishagratna in the 3 volumes in 1907 in Calcutta. The text was known to the Khmer king Yashovarman I of Cambodia. Sushruth was also known as the medical authority in Tibetan literature. In India, a major commentary on the text known as Nibandh Sangrah was written by Dalhan in 1200 CE. The Sushruth Samhita was composed after Charak Samhita, and except for some topics and their emphasis, both discuss many similar subjects. The Shushruth and Charak texts differ in one major aspect, with Sushruth Samhita providing the foundation of surgery, while Charak Samhita being primarily a foundation of medicine.
Acharya Charak has been crowned as the father of medicine. His work, Charak Samhita, is an encyclopedia of Ayurveda. Charak, who was a practitioner of the traditional system of Indian medicine known as Ayurveda, is known to have been the royal physician of King Kanishka. Agnivesh, under the guidance of the ancient physician Atreya, had written an encyclopedic treatise in the 8th century BCE. However, it was only when Charak revised this treatise that it gained popularity and came to be known as Charak Samhita. For 2 millennia, it remained a standard work on the subject and was translated into many foreign languages, including Arabic and Latin. According to the introductory chapter of the Charak Samhita itself, there existed 6 schools of medicine founded by the disciples of the sage Punarvasu Atreya. Each of his disciples, Agnivesh, Bhel, Jatukarn, Parashar, Harit, and Aksharpani, composed a medical compendium. The Agnivesh Samhita was later revised by Charak and it came to be known as Charak Samhita. The Charak Samhita was itself later supplemented by Dhritbal. It contains 8 parts: Sutrasthan, Nidanshthan, Vimanshthan, Sharirsthan, Indriyasthan, Chikitsasthan, Kalpsthan, and Siddhisthan. There were 8 main chapters in this book. There had been 120 subchapters, of which they all in total had 12,000 verses and description of 2,000 medicines. There were cures for diseases related to almost every body part of human body, and all medicines had natural elements to cure the diseases. In addition, he has described the influence of diet and activity on the mind and body, and has also detailed the relation of spirituality and physical health, which contributes greatly to the diagnosis and cure of disease. Charak seems to have been an early proponent of prevention is better than cure doctrine. This statement is rightly attributed to Acharya Charak, a physician who fails to enter the body of a patient with the lamp of knowledge and understanding can never treat diseases. He should first study all the factors, including environment, which influence a patient's disease, and then prescribe treatment. It is more important to prevent the occurrence of disease than to seek a cure. Charak's contribution
to the fields of physiology, etiology, and embryology have been recognized. Charak studied the anatomy of the human body and various organs. Charak is generally considered as the first physician to present the concept of digestion, metabolism, and immunity. According to him, our body functions because it contains three dosh or principles, namely Vat, Pitta, and Kapha. These doshas are produced when dhatus, they are blood, flesh, and marrow, act upon the food eaten. For the same quantity of food eaten, one body, however, produces dosha in an amount different from another body. That is why one body is different from another body. Further, he stressed illness is caused when the balance among the three doshas in a human body are disturbed. Although he was aware of germs in the body, he did not give them primary importance. While Charak delved into all aspects of medicine, including the logic and philosophy behind the Indian medicinal system, he placed special emphasis on the diagnosis of disease and treated Ayurveda as a comprehensive system of healthcare that dealt with both preventive and curative aspects. Charak devotes considerable space in the Charak Samhita to prenatal care, postnatal care, and treatment of mothers. He believes that a child needs to be looked after right from the time of conception. He thought that the health and mental state of a mother have direct bearing on the health of a child. Therefore, he recommends proper diet and nutrition for mothers during pregnancy. Charak believes that the basic building block of the human body is a cell. Our bodies are made up of countless cells. These cells are composed of 5 fundamental elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Similarly, other objects of our universe are also made up of the same elements. Hence, proper selection of food and natural medicine help restore the required deficiency in the human body. Through his genius and intuition, Acharya Charak has made a landmark contribution to the history of Ayurveda. If you want to know more about ancient Indian scientists, please refer to the playlist Ancient Indian Scientists. If you have liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.